So early Old Testament, it seems to be the idea is one man, one woman marriage. You don't get too far into the story, all of a sudden you're like, what's going on? And so the way the question is worded is, why did God permit men having multiple wives? And how does that affect us as we read the Bible between what you're describing as sort of descriptive, this is just what happened, versus prescriptive? Are there clues that we should pay attention to help us read correctly?
Yeah, one of our problems is we think like if it's in the Bible, we should, like, it must be okay. So we've already talked about this a bit. We need to definitely distinguish between description of what happened and prescription, which is saying, try this at home. And I would say when you watch the marriages that have multiple wives, the husbands with multiple wives, like, find me an example where that turns out well. Anybody have an example where this turns out well? It doesn't ever turn out well. There's rivalry, there's competition, there's embitteredness. You know, think of Sarah and Hagar. They're using this ancient method of trying to solve infertility. God didn't tell them to do this. This is just Sarah's idea. And it just goes very badly. Now, there is one case in the Bible where I think it could be argued that God encourages polygamy. But it's never, I want another wife. It's a matter of generosity to another family who hasn't had any children. So we see this case in Ruth. If a man dies and has not produced an heir, then his wife is supposed to be given to her brother-in-law in marriage. And the brother-in-law impregnates her, but their child is considered the child of the dead man. So it's a way of maintaining a family line and maintaining land inheritance. That's the main thing it's about, is land inheritance, so that someone's name doesn't die out in Israel. So Ruth and Boaz get married, and the text does not tell us whether Boaz is already married. That's not the point of the story, but I think it's quite likely that he is. He's a wealthy landowner with lots of servants. It would be very odd if he wasn't married. And so we like to think of this as a romance story.
It's a Hallmark movie, Carmen. You just ruined the Hallmark movie.
I'm ruining Hallmark for you. You know, there's no flakes of snow falling as they kiss right at the end. No, Boaz is very selflessly acquiring the land of Elimelech, the dead husband of Naomi, and acquiring Ruth as his wife so that Elimelech's family won't die out. And this is the only case where I think it's not only allowed, but it would be encouraged to take a second wife, and that would only be to make sure that family doesn't die out. So it's for very selfless reasons. It has nothing to do with, you know, one wife isn't enough for me.
Right. Well, and we have to be careful. This is where reading the Bible is a cross-cultural experience.
Yes.
You know, we're crossing 3,000-ish years of chronology. We're crossing an entire culture and geography, all of those kinds of things. So trying to make quick copy and paste parallels is where we go off, you know?
And I think you sort of alluded to this, but by the time we get to the New Testament, we're not seeing this happen anymore. There are other solutions that have come into play by then.
Right. Right, and the laws that sort of take effect in the land, there's other systems, other ways of caring for the vulnerable. I mean, when in that era, the woman has no ability to survive without any sort of provision like this.
It's not like there's a Walmart down the road and she can just go buy groceries with money. Like, you grow your own food, and if you're a widow, then you're probably of an age where you can't do all that field labor yourself. And who's to stop your neighbor from taking your land if you don't have a male protector? So for all sorts of reasons, widows are very vulnerable, and that's why God says make sure she's cared for in someone's home, and make sure that there's offspring to inherit her land.